Welcome to Blonde Cards and Crafts. Let's make something together. Hello, if you're new here, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be using the Papercraft Society Box number 32, and I've been inspired by this card. It's on page 22 in the book that we get, and it's by Glynis Bakewellas. Now, I loved the idea of the little girl blowing bubbles, but I wondered if I could action that. So I have a Papercraft Society die set here that we got previously, and I thought I would take the slider mechanism from this and use it on my card. So I had a little go at die cutting out the bubbles. I used this die that came in the kit and I die cut out these bubbles. I had some lightweight acetate in my stash that I used then for the background for this, and I thought this would make a cool movement on the card. So you can see here, there's the die that I used, and this is how it was going to look. And I thought this would be pretty cool. I could have my little girl blowing my bubbles. I used a scissors then to trim around the bubbles, and that gave me this piece here. You can see the acetate through that. Now, to stick my little bubbles down, I didn't want to use liquid glue because I thought I'd see that on the acetate, and I also thought I need to have the little mechanism inside. So what I did was I punched out a 1-inch circle of acetate, and then I took a smaller punch. It punches out 3/8 of an inch circles, and I punched them out on paper first to have a look, but I could see that through my bubbles, and I thought, I wonder if I punch out a number of them in the clear acetate as well and stick them together, it would give me this mechanism. So you can see there I have the larger 1-inch piece of acetate punched out, as well as I punched out, I'd say there's about 7 or 8 little 3/8 inch diameter punched acetates that are all stuck together. And I figure, yes, you can see it in the background, but it's going to be hard to make that disappear. But I love this little motion. I love how my bubbles are sliding up and down on the mechanism. Now we get 2 slots in the kit 19. We get this straight one and the curved one, and I felt the curved one was too long, so I'm going to cut this straighter one into my card front, and that'll give a shorter area for our bubbles to slide up and down on the front of our card. Now you will need some foam tape behind this. I use some thin foam strips that I got from Amazon, and I'll do my best to link everything down below, but I put them on the back, and that allows this little mechanism to slide up and down. Okay, so I've also taken the little girl and I've die cut her out on the dark cardstock that we got in the kit. So I wanted it to look like a silhouette of the little girl. That would just save me having to colour in a little girl. I also took some wide double-sided tape. I stuck it onto a piece of white cardstock. Then I used the die and I die cut out my little bubbles. I'm just trying to look and see if I can find it there under all my piles. But what it enables me to do is when I've die cut this out, I can then just peel off the release paper on the back, so I wouldn't be using a liquid glue on my acetate. So you can see there, that's what I was looking for. The release paper just comes off the back of the bubbles. So if you don't have the large, sheets of double-sided card or sticky things that you can put on the back of your paper, just use your double-sided tape. I use this regularly. This is a hack that I have. So I can stick my bubble layers then one on top of the other for a bit more definition. So that's the bubbles, that's the mechanism, that's our little girl. Let's have a look at our card base. So I'm going to use this card base. It's a 10 by 7 and I've scored it at 5 on the long side. So we'll have a top opening card base. I also have this teal matte layer and it measures 6 3/4 by 4 3/4, and that cardstock came in the kit. I have this piece of bubble pattern paper. It's 6.5 by 3. And then I have taken this piece of green cardstock, which is 6.5 by 2 3/4. And I have just cut out the backgrounds, the hills background on that. This piece is 6.5 by 1 1/4. And again, I cut out my hills on this as well freehand. I just used a scissors, guys, and did it, but there are dies for cutting that out. I took a stencil from my stash and I stenciled on the background, and then there is a little stamp that comes in the kit. It's this little one here. It's like dandelions, and I stamped that then using a darker green ink on the front of those 2 layers. So I'll have my little girl standing out in the grass in the fields, and she's there happy as a lark, blowing her bubbles to her heart's content. Won't that be lovely, with the little mechanism moving over and back? So I'm pleased with that now. I'm going to have a stamp sentiment on my sky. So the next thing we need to do is stick down our bubble pattern paper, which is our sky scene, and our hills scene together. And I have some of that bubble background sky paper here. I'm going to take a piece of this and I'm going to cut it off. It'll sit behind this where we have die cut out our slider mechanism. You can see there the darker cream card behind our mechanism. I don't want to be able to see my white card base, so I'm going to take a piece of this and I'm going to cut a piece to size. So depending on what you use to cut out your slot, you can do it freehand. Just mark up a slot and cut it out using a craft knife or a scissors. So whatever your opening is, just put a piece of the pattern paper behind it. So I'm gluing this down using my Collal construction glue. I know when this dries, it's going to be nice and strong and stiff, and that way then it helps with our mechanism too. I'll add some glue to this part as well, and I'm just eyeballing this. I'm making sure my border is even between the green hills and the teal behind. So I'm going to put all my pieces down now and have a look and just decide exactly where I want my slider slot to be, and the layout as well for my sentiments. So now I've die cut out my little slot and I'm happy with that. I've kind of have it at a bit of an angle as well, so the mechanism will tend to want to slide down towards my little girl when it's set on a shelf or a mantelpiece. I've got my piece of background behind as well, and I'm just having a look to see where I want that. You can see it there on the card base where that's laying down. So I'm going to add some glue to the back of this, and then I'm going to hold it against the front of the card at the back, if that makes sense to you. So I'm just holding it there so it'll be underneath where the slot is. You'll see what I mean. There you go, you see. So now I can gauge this. I can put my front piece on and I can see, okay, that's where my piece of pattern paper needs to be. Lovely. So it just means now when I look through the slot, all I'm going to see is the background piece, and it needs to be big enough so it doesn't interfere with our inch round acetate disc that's going to be sliding up and down against that. So next I want to put some sentiments on the front of the card, and look at me, I am putting them on before I stick everything down. I'm going to use the MISTI. This will allow me to stamp a couple of times if, the stamp needs to be stamped a couple of times. I've got the lovely bubbly sentiment, and I'm going to put that above my little girl, and then on the right hand side I'm going to put "It's your birthday," and then inside I can stamp a sentiment, and that'll be great. I'm chuffed with this idea. I'm really have my fingers crossed now that it's going to look all right when it's all put together. But sitting here now doing the editing is something I play with. I love it. A shaker card, the slider card. They're fun for adults as well as kids. So I'm using some Papercraft Society ink. This is a nice dark blue. kind of a navy color, and I'm going to stamp off once, and then I decide, well, it looks fine, but I think I'm going to give it a second stamping just so it'll be a nice even color. So again, I'll go over each of those and then put down the cover of the Misty and press down. Lovely. Delighted with that now. So I have my piece now with the slot cut out, and on the back of it I'm going to add some foam strips. I have these thin foam strips that I got on Amazon, and I'll leave links to them down below. I find these great for using on cards when I just want a little strip. I've got other foam tapes that I can use, but these are just perfect. So I'm going to lift up all around the edge of the card. I'm going to pop in my little mechanism there because I want the foam tape to be near the mechanism, but I don't want it to be touching the mechanism when it slides over and back. So you need to allow room around that. I'm going to now attach my bubbles to the top of my little punched out circles there. And you can see there I'm using the Collal Glue. This will take time for it to go off. So I'm happy with that though. I could use some red liner tape or something like that, but it just means I can come back and have a look at where my bubbles are set on that mechanism, because I may decide to move it into the center of the biggest bubble in the middle, which is what I do for a finish. Where I have it there, it's kind of imbalanced and it hangs down, whereas by moving it over so that the center of the mechanism is in the center of the big bubble, it actually slides up and down better. So have a look at that before you finish. Make sure you're happy with where your icon on the front is sitting on your slider piece. So now it's just a matter of removing all my release paper off my foam tape and then sticking my panel down onto my card base, making sure it's centered and my border all around is nice and even. And I'm delighted with that. I was going to embellish this with some of the little drops that came in the kit, but I've decided I'm going to embellish it instead with the crafting accent glaze that we got, the Papercraft accent glaze. I'm only going to put 3 drops above the lovely bubbly. I'm going to put 1 after the Y in birthday, and then I'm going to add a little bit to each of the heads of the flowers down there. So there we go, there's our lovely bubbly birthday card with its slider element using the bubbles dies that came inside our Papercraft Society kit. I've done a little video here so you can see how the movement works. I really am pleased with this card and I hope you like it too. You can hear it now, just sliding up and down along there, and it does spin. I'm just being kind of, you know, careful with it as I'm doing it, but I've been playing with it and it's spinning away there. I'm delighted with it. I hope you liked my video. If you did, you might consider giving it a thumbs up. If you're a subscriber, thanks for subscribing, and if not, you might click on the subscribe button down below and click on the bell so you'll be notified each time I post a new video. Here's some images of the cards we've made. Until next time, stay safe, take care, and bye for now.